I guess it was 1969, 3 days after graduation, enlisted in the Navy, and went out to San Diego.
Who are you?
Oh, Steve Larson, Argyle, Minnesota, graduated in 1969, and joined the Navy right after high school, and went out to San Diego for boot camp. So I spent a glorious summer there in San Diego.
So boot camp, what was that like?
Pretty much just, we'd get up in the morning, smoke a cigarette, go to breakfast. I remember sitting there in the morning at our barracks. Across the fence was the Marines, and you could see that they were already marching by 5 and running around, and we were just sitting there smoking a cigarette, walking and going to breakfast. And most of boot camp was really just going to schools, and really wasn't strenuous. There was, you marched everywhere you went because you were a group. But as far as physical boot camp, no, it wasn't physical. It was pretty much schools and nautical and stuff like that.
So if you were in any kind of shape, boot camp wasn't too hard for you. Did you have obstacle course? I'm not.
No, we did not have obstacle courses.
I wasn't in the Navy, so I knew a little bit of what my daughter went through, but
we had a lot
give us a little insight.
A lot of knot tying. We did a lot of knot tying and things like that you never really used once you're out of boot camp.
Wasn't there a lot of fire? Do a lot of putting out fires and stuff?
No, there were, you had the tear gas chamber. You'd have to go in and they'd take off your mask, and you had to figure out how to get your mask back on and get out, and that was probably one of the harder things to do. But no, it really wasn't a physical boot camp. It was pretty much going to schools, standing watch here and there, and I think it was went in June, I think, and July, I think it was August is when we were out of boot camp.
So you get done with boot camp. You have parade or?
We did. We had a parade, and we were so out of step marching that they actually didn't let us go on Liberty that day. That we had a really, did you ever see the movie with Bill Murray?
Yeah.
That was us. What was the name of that movie?
Oh, I can't remember. I know which one you're talking about.
Jack, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were, that was kind of our camp. We really weren't much into marching, didn't do it very well. But yeah, so got out of boot camp and stayed in San Diego for electronics school and had.
That was your MOS then, electronics?
No, submarine nuclear weapons is what I ended up with. And but you had to go through basic electric to before you did anything else after that. And then from there, San
How
Diego,
long did that last?
I think that was a 3-month. Let me see, that would have been 3 months. And then from there, we went out to Dam Neck, Virginia for nuclear missile launching school. What else did we do? Then we also did nuclear weapons training for torpedoes and missiles. And then from there, we went to sub school up in Groton, Connecticut. And
what's involved in sub school?
That's again mostly classes, going to classes to learn about submarines and history of submarines, not to mention the technical part of submarines and stuff like that. And then from there we ended up back at the boat. We went on the boat in Newport News, Virginia. We ended up on the USS Tecumseh, SSBN 629.
And that's a submarine?
Yeah, nuclear submarine. The boat was in the shipyards in Newport News getting retrofitted from Polaris missiles to Poseidon missiles. And so we were able to, we lived on basically a barge, for about 4 months as the boat was getting fixed and everything put back together. So then once the boat was done, we had 2 crews, gold crew, blue crew, so you're on the boat for 3 months and you're off the boat for 3 months. And
you have 12-hour shift then, or?
We would do a 12-hour shift, yeah. No, let me see, what was it, 12? 6. 6 on, 12 off. When the boat was on patrol, but prior to going on patrol, we got to do sea trials, which we got to go out and run every part of the boat that needed to be tested, from sonar to missiles to torpedoes, diving and surfacing and all that kind of stuff. And we operated out of the island of St. Croix in the Virgin Islands for 30 days, which was kind of nice. Every third day we got just stay in as for liberty and enjoy the island. And so yeah, once the boat was all done and we came back to Charleston, and then we were the first crew that took it from Charleston to Holy Loch, Scotland. So we took it out to Scotland and did the first patrol. And then when we got back, then the other crew came over and flipped it, and we'd come back to Charleston. And so yeah, we did.
So you'd be out for so many months, and then you'd
we'd
be
be
back
on the
in
boat
port?
for on an average 3 months. Of that 3 months, 3 to 4 months, I guess it was, and 3.5 months, because we would be about 25 days getting the boat ready to go back to sea. Putting stores, groceries, fixing any equipment that needed to be fixed, and then we'd go to sea for about 80 days.
So
for 80
when you were
days.
out at sea, how many days did you spend underwater?
All of them, because we were an FBM ballistic missile, so we never surfaced. Once we submerged, we never surfaced for 80 days, and because we'd go out to a certain grid and we'd stay in that grid, because then our missiles were targeted for a certain area and we could launch our missiles from that point and hit our target. So then we'd stay underwater for 80 days and then come back and switch crews, and then our off crew was in Charleston, and we were fortunate that our off crew was in the summer and Christmas, so we had the best of the off crews, and did 3 patrols on the boat.
So what was the most exciting thing that happened while you were on patrol?
When we were doing sea trials, we were testing our radar, sonar, and we were taking a run at what they called a ballast ship, cement ballast ship that had transducers hanging down from it. So we were testing our sonar, and the con officer had to go to the bathroom, and the other officer relieved him, and they did not share exactly where they were in relation to the sonar ship. And all of a sudden we heard dive, 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 and we started to submerge, but we were at periscope depth when it happened, and all of our masts were up. The submarine's got snorkel mast, antennas and stuff like that, and as we were diving, our snorkel mast hit the ballast and knocked the snorkel off the top as it bounced across the missile compartment. So
This was another submarine that you?
no, it's just a flatboat ship that had a lot of technical equipment on it that we would test our sonar. They would drop a transducer, and we would have to, see if our sonar is working, bounce it back, get it back, that type of stuff. And so yeah, that was quite exciting, because we had to return to Charleston on the surface, and we hit a storm off the Cape Hatteras, and submarine's nothing more than a big cigar in the water, so we had some pretty good lists going back. But yeah, the sea trials was probably the most exciting part of the Navy, because we got to shoot our missiles, we got to shoot torpedoes, we got to do deep dive. We also got to do emergency surface, like you see in the movies, where it comes out of the water, which that's only in the movies. That is not something you do on a regular basis. So yeah.
So when you came up, it was just kind of a gradual plane.
Yeah, when we came up, it's like this: emergency surface. You're coming up at a 30-degree angle, and the boat pops up out of the water. So yeah, that doesn't happen very often, if at all. And so yeah, that was so my Navy career is pretty much we had.
So you did this for like over 3 years, then?
3 years, 9 months, and 2 days, but who's counting?
Yeah.
And did 3 patrols out of Scotland, which got to, do some touring in Scotland, on some Liberty Days and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was.
So is that the only country that you went to? Is Scotland?
Scotland, yeah.
That was the only other port you had?
That was the port that we would, because the boat would park in one spot, and then we would leave there to go on our patrol in, the Arctic or off the coast of Russia or wherever. We'd be in certain areas where, in the Atlantic, where again our missiles would hit our target if need be.
So 3 months was the longest you were ever out?
That's it. Yeah.
3 months. Okay. And what's the furthest you got away from your port? Do you know?
I'd say we were across the Antarctic. We were.
You were under the ice?
Under ice, yeah. So we did cross the Antarctic. off the coast of Russia. It's probably the farthest we'd get away. And again, keep in mind we were in Scotland. This is where our port was. Holy Loch, Scotland, is where the Navy port is.
So you're on this boat for 3 months. Do you have parties or anything, or
Movies back in the day, it was the old reel to reel.
call them flicks?
Yeah, we had reels, reel to reel. We'd go to sea with about 60 movies and different movies, and store them in the missile compartment up at the top there. That's where the movies were kept, and had decent food. Steak and lobster on Friday, and
What were your sleeping quarters like?
I slept in the torpedo room. There were 3 bunks up there, and
They were actual bunks?
bunks. Yeah, the bunks were, they're about 2.5 feet like this, and 3 feet like this, maybe 2.5 feet this way, and 7 feet. And you had a locker at your head, and that's basically where you slept.
So you didn't want to overeat or get really big?
No, there were big people on the boat. What you didn't want to do is die, because then they would just put you in the freezer until you got back.
Yeah.
They'd wrap you up and put you in the freezer until you got back. So, because we didn't surface for anything.
So where did you muster out at?
Charleston, South Carolina.
At South Carolina. And what happened after that? What'd you do after that?
I stayed in Charleston, built homes, got in the building industry, and carpenter, and helped a buddy frame houses in Charleston area, Seabrook Island, that area.
How long did you do that?
I came back to Minnesota in 1977. Got out of the Navy in '73, and came back to Minnesota in '77.
Okay.
So,
And anything else?
no, I was very fortunate on the way back from Minnesota that January of '77. A blizzard came across, and General Buck Bedard was in Nashville at the time, and there was a college there. He was the ROTC program he was doing, I think, out of, in Nashville. I can't think of the college.
He was in Nashville at the time because he graduated from Mayville.
Yeah, but no, he was a Marine at the time. He was,
When he was a Marine, okay.
Lieutenant at the time. And so I got stuck, and I stayed at his house for 3 days during, I think that would have been the Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings Super Bowl?
No.
77? Who did they play in 77?
Uh,
Because they were at the Super Bowl.
Be an AFC team, probably Miami or something. Miami,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Maybe they were playing it in Dallas, but so I stayed at Buck's place and Linda's place for 3 days, and as I moved my way back home that winter. So, but so that's pretty much to remember all the little stuff I did in the Navy. I mean, there's a lot of stories I can't say, can't tell, but as far as being in the submarines and working on the boat, it was unique. It was a different, I mean, even to this day, it was 50-some years ago, and we still have an annual reunion with about 20 of the guys that still get together. And they know more of the old stories than I do. I just sit and listen, and they tell me I was there, but, it was kind of a blur, 4 years in the Navy. We did a lot of good stuff, had a lot of fun, and being on the boat was unique. I mean, the first 2 patrols on the boat, you had to qualify. By qualify means that you had to know what every system on the boat did, from the torpedo room to the engine room, and then you'd have a 2.5, 3 hour oral board to pass to get what they call your dolphins. And if you couldn't complete that in 2 patrols, you were out of the submarines. So.
Out of submarines or
out of submarines?
Just
No,
out of
just
submarines.
Yeah. And so you had 2 patrols to complete that. And so did it in 2 patrols, and I did 3 patrols.
That sounds like you had plenty of time to study first.
Pretty much 6. Well, actually, before you qualified for your dolphins, you did probably 6 hours on a watch, and you probably studied 3 to 4 hours. But once you were qualified, you didn't have to do that. So you 6-hour watch, 12 hours off. So.
No.
So.
But it was only, you said there was only 2 different crews.
2 crews.
2 crews and 6 hours on
Oh, no,
12.
no. Our crew managed the boat for 3 months. The other crew was on off crew back in Charleston.
Yeah.
So when you had the boat, it was about 133 enlisted and 16 officers total on the boat, and everybody had their own job. And there were guys you hung out with off crew that you might not see the whole patrol. They might be on a different, watch than you were, and a different department than you are, and so because you'd only hang with the people that you were, doing the same watch with. So there'd be some of the sleeping, you'd be watching. So yeah, so it was, pretty an intimate crew.
Do you remember how long this submarine was?
524 feet.
524 feet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I want to say 33 feet this way.
So
in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Steve?
Oh gosh, now that I told you that, I'm going to have to kill you because that's top secret information.
Now we've got to edit the film.
You're going to have to redact a lot of stuff.
There's nothing else you can think of you'd like to?
No, they're just different stories, but they're all pretty much personal stories. But most of them were off the boat on most of the.
Oh, just give us one. Just one that.
Let me see.
One where you're halfway sober, anyway.
Yeah, well, let's see. Then I can't tell you anything. Scotty, was a good friend of ours, and I remember Scotty once. He got a brand new Ford pickup, and we were in Isle of Palms in Charleston, and he had a girl with him, and he was going to be smart, and he drove his new truck on the beach as the tide was going out and got stuck, even in his four-wheel drive, and could not get it out, and he had bought it 2 days earlier without insurance yet, and the next morning as the tide came in, it pretty much flooded. His truck was underwater. I remember us sitting on the tailgate dangling our feet in the water, and those are some of the stories that when you're young and stupid and in the Navy, you do things. And so yeah, it was a fun time. So
good. Anything you want to add after you get out? Anything you'd like to?
No, not really. Just stayed in Charleston and hung out there till '77, and then came home and started a career, got married, had kids. So
Yep. Okay, Steve, I want to thank you for doing this interview. I know you're well respected in the Little Falls area. You had a real successful career, and thank you for your service.
well, thank you, Keith.